Oil prices continue to rise as President Trump vows to keep attacking Iran. This as the Strait of Hormuz, the key passageway of more than 20% of the world's oil, remains virtually shut down. Trump appeared to shift his strategy on forcing Iran to reopen the strait, saying it is now up to our allies.
Build up some delayed courage. Should have done it before, should have done it with us, as we asked. Go to the strait and just take it, protect it. Use it for yourselves. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done, so it should be easy. And in any event, when this conflict is over, the strait will open up naturally.
Meanwhile, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer stood firm on keeping his country out of the conflict ahead of the president's speech yesterday.
This is not our war. We will not be drawn into the conflict. That is not in our national interest. And the most effective way we can support the cost of living in Britain is to push for de-escalation in the Middle East and a reopening of the Strait of Hormuz.
Okay, let's talk about this with CBS News Middle East contributor Courtney Kealy. Hey, Courtney, so I want to ask about this because first, President Trump has been critical of our allies and even NATO in this conflict, but then what happens next?
Right, and when we talk about the UK or European allies or NATO, really what's also really important too is to focus on the alliance with the Gulf countries, which President Trump named, from Qatar to Bahrain to Saudi Arabia to Kuwait. And that's not all of them. He has traveled there, he has relationships, he speaks to Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi Arabian Crown Prince, often, if not daily. So what's happening is, while he talked about alliances, this interesting note of saying, take it, because he started his speech and he pretty much ended his speech with saying, we already are working with Venezuela and we have oil and we don't need it, basically. He was pretty blunt. And then, so that put that on the table, and then he said, take it. And then he talked about alliances, but this is the Gulf, and these Gulf alliances want this to be over, but they want the Iranian regime gone. And the Iranian regime responded very quickly in two ways. An 18-year-old Amir Hussein Hatam was killed, executed without a fair trial, no legal recourse. One of many executions that are just starting, several. And then also an Iranian, senior Iranian general said, no one should survive if the U.S. launches a ground invasion, a ground offensive. So that's an immediate threat to soldiers if they move in. And we know ground troops like the 82nd Airborne are staging. We don't know if they'll go in or not or where, but they are staging. So big threat from the Iranian regime, Iranian people living under war, they're living under displacement. And they say still that they would rather the regime be gone. Some of them would rather die than have to live under this regime. And while President Trump was kind of offering up, this is what's happening, maybe too little too late in terms of presenting it to the American public and the world, it's the Iranians that suffer. He talked about 47,000 Iranians, that's his number, that were killed in those January protests. They're still executing people from those January protests. People are scared to go into the streets. There's no way to uprise when you're scared that you're going to be shot and killed if you take to the streets.
Yeah. And so, Courtney, what do you think comes next in all this? As you mentioned, Iran is clearly very defiant about their role, and the president obviously saying this is going to be over in just a few weeks. But then how does it get out of this with a win, at least a win in the eyes of the American people?
Right. There's no win in war, and there's no off-ramp right now. So a win in the U.S.'s idea would be total regime change, which President Trump has said has pretty much happened, and they have gotten out key figures. But what you have is you have this backbench of zealots that are willing to die for the cause, that are willing to put 12-year-olds, young soldiers as well as 12-year-olds out in the fields like they did in the Iran-Iraq War with plastic keys around their neck, fighting against Iraq, sacrificing their life. The regime belief system is martyrdom for the revolution. You can keep sending in more people that are willing to die, but meanwhile, it's the Iranian people, the vast majority, that are at the will of this regime. And will the U.S. get out too soon? Will they stay the course? Will the Gulf get more actively involved? Will Israel stay? We'll be watching all of those things for you.
Yeah, we know you will. Courtney Kealy, thank you so much for your insights today.